The man everyone believed was guilty never raised his voice. That was the first thing people noticed. The second was the way he didn't react when the prosecutor described the crime in brutal detail. And the third, the detail almost nobody paid attention to, was the way one witness watched him instead of the jury. That detail would change everything. But not yet. The courtroom felt heavier than usual, not loud, not chaotic, just certain. Certainty settled into the air like dust, the kind that made people stop questioning before the truth had finished speaking. Daniel Hayes sat at the defense table, hands folded neatly in front of him. Calm. Too calm. A man facing life imprisonment should show fear, anger, desperation. Hayes showed none, which made him look dangerous. Across the aisle, Assistant District Attorney Marcus Bell adjusted a stack of papers with quiet confidence. He had built a clean case, timeline locked, motive clear, witnesses aligned. The jury had leaned forward during his arguments. They believed him. He could feel it. And belief was often enough. Judge Eleanor Grant entered the courtroom. Everyone stood, wood scraped against the floor, a ritual older than anyone present. She took her seat slowly, eyes scanning the room with practiced awareness. 30 years on the bench had taught her something simple. The trials that felt easiest at the beginning were often the ones hiding something deeper. "Call your next witness," she said. Bell stood. "The state calls Adrian Cole." A man rose from the back row, mid-40s, controlled movements, neutral expression. He walked toward the stand without hesitation. Hayes watched him closely, too closely. That was the first crack. Cole took the oath. His voice was steady, almost rehearsed. Bell approached. "Mr. Cole, you saw the defendant the night of the murder?" "Yes." No hesitation. Bell nodded, turning slightly toward the jury. "And what did you observe?" Cole's eyes shifted briefly toward Hayes. Not accusation, not fear, recognition. "I saw an argument," he said. The words landed hard. Jurors exchanged small glances. Bell stepped closer. "Between whom?" "Mr. Hayes and the victim." Bell paused deliberately, letting silence expand. "Describe the argument." Cole inhaled slowly. "It wasn't just anger," he said. "It felt final." A subtle shift moved through the courtroom. The word carried weight. Final. Hayes didn't react, didn't blink, didn't move. That calm made people uneasy. Defense attorney Laura Chen stood for cross-examination. Her voice remained gentle, measured. "Mr. Cole," she said, "you left after the argument?" "Yes." "And you never returned?" "No." She paused, watching him carefully, too carefully. "You're certain about that?" "Yes." The answer came quickly, confident, almost eager. Chen nodded slowly. Something about his certainty bothered her, but she moved on. No further questions. Recess was called. People stood. Whispers filled the room. Bell smiled slightly. The trial was unfolding exactly as planned, but Judge Grant remained still. Watching Adrian Cole as he stepped down from the stand, he wasn't relieved, wasn't tense. He looked patient, as if he were waiting for something or someone. And for a moment, she felt the quiet instinct that had guided her through decades of trials. Watch closely. Because sometimes the truth appears when nobody notices. The room changed after the witness stepped down, not visibly, not dramatically. But something in the atmosphere shifted, like the air had tightened just slightly around the edges. Most people didn't notice. They were already forming conclusions, already deciding what they believed, and belief, once formed, becomes louder than truth. Daniel Hayes remained motionless at the defense table. His hands rested exactly where they had been all morning. No shaking, no visible tension, just stillness. That stillness bothered people more than anger would have. Juror number 6 glanced at him again, longer this time, searching for emotion. Finding none. Across the aisle, Assistant District Attorney Marcus Bell organized his papers with quiet satisfaction. Adrian Cole had been strong, precise, exactly the kind of witness juries trusted, someone calm, someone credible, someone who sounded certain, and certainty made people stop asking questions. Defense attorney Laura Chen did not share that comfort. She watched Cole as he moved toward the exit doors. He didn't look back, didn't rush, didn't hesitate, just walked, like someone who knew exactly what came next. That bothered her. Judge Eleanor Grant leaned back slightly in her chair. She had watched thousands of witnesses testify. Fear left fingerprints. So did guilt. So did lies. Cole had shown none of the obvious signs, but something about him felt prepared. Not rehearsed, prepared. There was a difference. Court resumed. Bell called another witness, a forensic analyst who confirmed timelines and evidence. Facts stacked neatly, logical, clean. The prosecution's narrative grew stronger with every minute. And yet, Laura Chen felt the unease growing. Not from what was being said, from what wasn't. She flipped through her notes again. One question circled 3 times. "You never returned?" Cole's answer replayed in her mind. Too fast, too firm. People telling the truth often pause, not because they're unsure, but because memory is messy. His memory had sounded perfect, and perfect answers rarely existed in real life. The forensic testimony ended. Bell rested his case for the day. The judge turned toward Chen. Defense may call its next witness. Chen stood slowly. Her voice remained calm, but her pulse had begun to quicken. The defense recalls Adrian Cole. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Bell frowned slightly. "That's unusual," he said quietly. Judge Grant nodded. "Mr. Cole is still present?" "Yes, Your Honor," Chen said. Cole returned to the stand, same calm, same steady breathing. But this time, he looked directly at Chen before she spoke, as if expecting her questions. "Mr. Cole," Chen began gently, "earlier you stated you left the victim's office and never returned." "Yes." "And you are certain of that?" "Yes." She stepped closer. Her tone remained neutral. "You arrived at the office at approximately 8:14 p.m.? "Yes." "And left at 8:42 p.m.? "Yes." "Without interruption?" "Yes." The rhythm of his answers felt mechanical. Too clean. Chen nodded slowly. Then she asked the question that changed the energy in the room. "You parked in the underground garage?" "Yes." "And security cameras cover that garage?" "Yes." Chen paused, long enough for attention to sharpen. "Would it surprise you to learn that footage shows your vehicle entering the garage again at 9:17 p.m.? Silence hit the courtroom like a dropped weight. Cole didn't move, didn't react, didn't blink. Bell stood quickly. "Objection!" Judge Grant raised a hand. "Overruled. Answer the question." All eyes moved to Cole. The calm remained, but something else appeared beneath it now. Calculation. "I don't recall returning," he said. The first crack, small, barely noticeable but real. Chen nodded. "You don't recall," she repeated softly. "Is it possible you did return?" Cole hesitated, a real hesitation this time. "Yes," he said slowly. "It's possible." Jurors shifted. The atmosphere tightened. Certainty began to fracture. Chen stepped closer. "And when you returned, did you see the victim alive?" Bell stood again. "Objection! Speculative." Judge Grant considered. "Answer if you can, Mr. Cole." Cole's gaze moved briefly toward Daniel Hayes, then back to Chen. His voice dropped slightly. "I didn't say I returned to the office." The answer landed carefully. technically precise, emotionally evasive. Judge Grant leaned forward slightly. Now she felt it too. Something beneath the surface, something unfolding slowly. And for the first time, the case that had seemed simple began to feel dangerous, not because of what had been proven, but because of what had just begun to unravel. Silence filled the courtroom. Not the ordinary quiet of people waiting politely. This silence had weight. It pressed against the walls, against the jurors' thoughts, against the carefully constructed narrative that had seemed so solid only minutes earlier. Assistant District Attorney Marcus Bell remained standing. His objection hung unfinished in the air. Judge Eleanor Grant watched Adrian Cole closely. For the first time since taking the stand, he looked unsettled, not nervous, not afraid, just aware that something had shifted. Defense attorney Laura Chen allowed the silence to stretch. She knew the power of unanswered space. People rushed to fill it. Truth rarely did. "Mr. Cole," she said calmly, "you stated you didn't return to the office." "Yes." "And yet you now admit it's possible you returned to the garage." "Yes." Her tone remained neutral. "You understand the difference matters." "I do." "Then let's be precise." She stepped closer, voice soft but clear. "When you returned to the building at 9:17 p.m., what were you doing there?" Cole hesitated again, a longer pause this time. Juror number 3 leaned forward. Bell shifted uncomfortably. "I don't recall entering the office," Cole said. "That wasn't my question," Chen replied gently. "What were you doing in the building?" Cole swallowed. The movement was small, but noticeable. "I needed to retrieve something from my car." "What was it?" Another pause. "My phone charger." A faint murmur rippled through the spectators. Chen nodded slowly. "A phone charger." "Yes. And yet your phone records show your device remained active inside the building until 9:31 p.m. The room tightened. Bell rose again. "Your Honor," Judge Grant raised a hand without looking away from the witness. "Sit down, Mr. Bell." The command was quiet. Absolute. Chen allowed the information to settle. She turned slightly toward the jury, then back to Cole. "You testified earlier that you left after the argument because you felt uncomfortable." "Yes." "And you didn't think what you saw mattered." "Yes." "Yet you returned less than 40 minutes later." "Yes." "Why?" Cole's eyes moved briefly toward Hayes again. That look lasted only a second. But Chen saw it. Judge Grant saw it too. "I already said," Cole replied. "I needed something from my car." Chen nodded. "But you stayed long enough for your phone to connect to the office network again." The first visible tension appeared in Cole's jaw. Bell stood. "Your Honor, this line of questioning assumes facts not fully established." Judge Grant's voice cut cleanly through the room. "The jury will determine what is established. Sit down." Bell sat, slowly. Chen stepped closer to the witness stand. Her voice softened even more. "Mr. Cole, did you speak to the victim again when you returned?" "No." "Did you see anyone else enter the office?" "No." "Did you hear anything unusual?" "No." Each answer came faster, less careful, more defensive. Chen nodded slowly. Then she asked the question that fractured the room. "Mr. Cole, did you see the victim after Mr. Hayes left?" Complete silence. Cole froze, only for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Bell stood again, sharper this time. "Objection!" "Speculative and misleading." "Overruled," Judge Grant said immediately. Her eyes remained locked on Cole. "Answer the question." The air felt thinner. Jurors leaned forward unconsciously. Hayes finally moved, just slightly, his hands tightening together. Cole inhaled slowly. His calm facade wavered for the first time. "I don't recall," he said. The words landed differently now. Not certainty, not confidence. Evasion. Chen nodded once. Memory can be difficult, she said gently. Especially when something important happens. Cole said nothing. She took another step closer. You testified that the argument between Mr. Hayes and the victim felt final. Yes. What made it feel final? Cole hesitated again, this time longer. His eyes moved across the room, toward the jury, toward Hayes, toward the judge. It felt unresolved, he said finally. Chen tilted her head slightly. That's interesting, she said. Because earlier you described it as final. The distinction hung in the air, small, but powerful. Final. Unresolved. Two words, two completely different meanings. Judge Grant leaned forward slightly. Now she felt it clearly. The shift. The trial had crossed an invisible line. It was no longer about proving guilt. It was about discovering who had been guiding the narrative all along. And for the first time since the trial began, certainty began to crumble. The air inside the courtroom felt different now. Not tense in the way people expected during dramatic trials. Sharper. Focused. Like everyone had leaned forward at the same time, without realizing it. Moments earlier, the case had felt settled. Now, it felt unstable, and instability made people uncomfortable. Adrian Cole remained on the stand, his posture still straight, his voice still controlled. But the cracks were there now. Small pauses, slight shifts in tone, answers that sounded carefully chosen instead of natural. Judge Eleanor Grant watched him with quiet intensity. She had learned long ago that truth didn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it slipped in through small inconsistencies. And the room was beginning to fill with them. Defense attorney Laura Chen stepped closer to the witness stand again. She moved slowly, measured, every step deliberate. Mr. Cole, she said gently, let's return to the timeline. Cole nodded. Yes. You arrived at the office at 8:14 p.m. Yes. You witnessed an argument between Mr. Hayes and the victim. Yes. You left at 8:42 p.m. Yes. And then returned to the building around 9:17 p.m. Cole hesitated. Possibly. The word hung there. Possibly. Not yes. Not no. Chen allowed it to remain unchallenged for a moment. Then she spoke again. When you returned, was the victim alive? Cole swallowed. I don't recall seeing him. That wasn't my question. Her voice remained calm, steady. When you returned, was he alive? Bell stood immediately. Objection. Argumentative. Judge Grant paused only briefly. Overruled. Her gaze remained fixed on Cole. Answer. Cole's composure flickered. For the first time, he looked uncertain. I can't say, he replied. A murmur moved through the spectators. One juror exchanged a glance with another. The foundation of certainty shifted again. Chen nodded slightly. You can't say, she repeated softly. Yet you told police the argument felt final. Yes. What did you mean by that? Cole hesitated. It felt like something had ended. What exactly? I don't know. Chen took a breath, then changed direction. Mr. Cole, you contacted police 3 days after the murder. Yes. You weren't originally considered a primary witness. No. They didn't seek you out. No. You volunteered. Yes. Chen paused, then asked quietly, Why? The question felt simple, but it landed with unexpected force. Cole looked down briefly, then back up. Because I thought it mattered. Chen nodded. What changed your mind after 3 days? Another hesitation, longer now. Judge Grant leaned forward slightly. Bell watched closely. Cole exhaled slowly. I realized what I saw might be important. What specifically? The argument. Chen tilted her head. But you said earlier you didn't believe it mattered at the time. Yes. So, what changed? Cole's eyes flickered toward Hayes again. That look did not go unnoticed. Chen followed it, then spoke softly. Did someone encourage you to come forward? Bell stood sharply. Objection. Leading. Judge Grant considered. Rephrase. Chen nodded. Did anyone speak to you between the night of the murder and when you contacted police? Cole hesitated, a visible hesitation now. Yes. The word landed hard. Bell's posture stiffened. Chen remained still. Who? Cole swallowed. My attorney. Chen nodded slowly. And before that? Another pause. The room felt impossibly quiet. Cole's calm began to fracture. I received a call, he said. A ripple of tension moved through the jury. What kind of call? Chen asked gently. A warning. The word echoed. Bell stepped forward. Your Honor. Judge Grant raised a hand without looking at him. Continue. Chen's voice remained steady. A warning about what? Cole's eyes darkened slightly. About being careful what I said. Silence slammed into the room. Not loud, but absolute. For the first time since the trial began, the direction had changed completely. This was no longer a straightforward prosecution. This was a shifting narrative, and somewhere inside that shift, the truth had begun to emerge. Quietly, almost unnoticed. The courtroom felt smaller. No walls had moved, no lights had dimmed, but the space between people had changed, narrowed by uncertainty. The prosecution's certainty had begun to fracture, and everyone felt it, even those who didn't yet understand why. Adrian Cole remained on the stand. His calm had faded into something more careful now, measured, guarded. Judge Eleanor Grant watched him without interruption. She had seen this moment before, the precise second when a witness realized they were no longer controlling the narrative. Defense attorney Laura Chen stepped forward again. She did not rush. She allowed the tension to grow naturally. You said you received a warning, she said quietly. Yes. From whom? Cole hesitated. His eyes flicked briefly toward the prosecution table. That glance did not go unnoticed. Bell straightened immediately. Chen saw it. The jury saw it. Judge Grant saw it. The room held its breath. It was anonymous, Cole said finally. A phone call. When? The day after the murder. What did they say? Cole swallowed slowly. They told me to be careful about what I remembered. A faint ripple moved through the spectators. Chen's tone remained neutral. Did they tell you what to say? No. Did they tell you what not to say? A longer pause. Yes. The word landed heavily. Bell stood immediately. Objection, hearsay, and speculation. Judge Grant's voice cut cleanly through him. Sit down, Mr. Bell. The authority in her tone silenced the room. Chen continued gently. What did they tell you not to say? Cole hesitated again, long enough for doubt to deepen. They said, I shouldn't mention seeing anyone else. A wave of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Judge Grant tapped her gavel lightly. Order. The sound echoed sharply. Chen allowed the moment to breathe. Then she asked softly, Mr. Cole, did you see someone else that night? Cole's composure fractured visibly now. His hands tightened slightly around the edge of the stand. Bell's voice came quickly. Objection! Overruled, Judge Grant said immediately. Her eyes never left the witness. Answer. Cole's breathing slowed. He looked toward Hayes again. Hayes remained still, but his eyes were sharper now, watching, waiting. Yes, Cole said quietly. Gasps moved through the spectators. Bell's face tightened. Chen remained calm. Who did you see? Cole hesitated. The longest pause yet. Every second stretched. The jury leaned forward. Even the court reporter paused slightly before continuing to type. I saw someone enter the office after Mr. Hayes left. The words landed like a thunderclap. Bell rose immediately. Your Honor, we request a sidebar. Judge Grant shook her head. No, the witness will continue. Bell froze. For the first time, uncertainty showed on his face. Chen stepped closer. Did you recognize this person? Cole nodded slowly. Yes. Who was it? Cole's eyes moved again, not toward Hayes this time, toward the prosecution table. Bell's breath caught. Chen saw it instantly. Judge Grant leaned forward. The entire room felt suspended between breaths. It was... Cole began. He stopped, closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. It was someone connected to the investigation. The words cracked open the entire trial. A murmur erupted before Judge Grant struck the gavel sharply. Order! Silence returned, but it felt fragile now, unstable, dangerous. Chen spoke again, quieter than before. Mr. Cole, was it someone sitting in this courtroom today? Cole nodded slowly. Yes. Bell's chair scraped slightly against the floor. Judge Grant watched him carefully now. Every movement mattered. Chen took one slow step forward. Please identify them. The tension became almost unbearable. Cole lifted his hand, pointed, not toward the defendant, not toward the defense, toward the prosecution. And for the first time since the trial began, certainty shattered completely. The moment stretched beyond sound. Adrian Cole's hand remained raised, finger extended toward the prosecution table. No one moved. No one breathed. The entire courtroom existed inside a suspended second that felt longer than anything that had come before it. Assistant District Attorney Marcus Bell froze, not dramatically, not visibly shaken, but still. Too still. Judge Eleanor Grant leaned forward slowly. Her voice, when it came, was calm, but sharper than before. Mr. Cole, she said, you will clearly identify the person you are referring to. Cole lowered his hand slightly, then lifted it again, this time without hesitation. That man, he said. The courtroom followed his gaze, not to Bell, but to the man seated one chair behind him. Detective Raymond Hale, lead investigator on the case. The air fractured. A low murmur spread like a wave before Judge Grant struck her gavel sharply. Order! The sound snapped everyone back into stillness. Bell turned slowly toward Hale. Confusion crossed his face, then disbelief. Hale didn't move. His expression remained composed, almost neutral. Too neutral. Defense attorney Laura Chen spoke carefully. Mr. Cole, you're saying Detective Hale entered the office after Mr. Hayes left? Yes. Bell stood immediately. Your Honor, we request an immediate recess. Judge Grant raised her hand. No. The single word landed with authority. The witness will continue. Bell hesitated, clearly struggling between protocol and instinct, but he sat, slowly. Chen stepped closer to the stand. Her voice remained calm, measured. When you saw Detective Hale, what was he doing? Cole swallowed. He went inside. How long after Mr. Hayes left? Maybe 15 minutes. The jury shifted. Someone in the back row gasped softly. Judge Grant ignored it. Her attention remained locked on the witness. Chen continued. Did you speak to him? No. Did he see you? I don't think so. Did you report this to anyone? No. Why not? Cole hesitated again, because now the answer mattered more than anything else. Because of the call, he said quietly. The warning. Bell stood again. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The prosecution has had no prior notice of this allegation. Judge Grant's gaze moved toward him. That may be addressed shortly, Mr. Bell. For now, sit down. Bell sat again. But the certainty that had defined him earlier was gone, replaced by tension. Chen allowed silence to grow before asking her next question. "Mr. Cole, when Detective Hale entered the office, did you hear anything?" Cole closed his eyes briefly, remembering. "I heard raised voices, between whom I couldn't hear clearly." "Did you hear the victim?" "Yes." "What did he sound like?" Cole's voice lowered. "Afraid." The word hit harder than anything else said that day. Judge Grant's posture changed subtly, not visibly to most, but those watching closely saw it. She was no longer simply presiding, she was listening for truth. Chen spoke again. "And after that?" Cole hesitated. "I heard a loud noise." The courtroom froze again. "What kind of noise?" Chen asked. Cole swallowed. "A gunshot." Bell's hand tightened around the edge of the table. Hale remained perfectly still. Too perfectly still. Chen turned slightly toward the jury. Then, back to Cole. "Why didn't you say this earlier?" Cole's answer came quietly. "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" Cole glanced toward Hale again. "Of being wrong," he said, "and of being right." The honesty landed heavily. Judge Grant took a slow breath, then spoke. "This court will take a 10-minute recess." Her gavel struck once, sharp, final. The room erupted into motion, whispers, confusion, shock. Jurors looked at one another, uncertain how to process what they had just witnessed. Bell leaned toward Detective Hale immediately, voice low and urgent. Chen remained still, watching. Because she knew something most people didn't yet understand. The trial had just crossed a point of no return, and somewhere inside the chaos, the truth had finally stepped into the light. The courtroom no longer felt like a place of certainty. It felt like a place waiting for impact. When the judge returned, the room rose again, slower this time, quieter, as if everyone understood they were stepping back into something unpredictable. Judge Eleanor Grant sat. Her eyes moved across the room carefully, not searching for guilt, searching for control. "Be seated." The words landed softly but firmly. Detective Raymond Hale remained at the prosecution table. He had not moved during recess, not once. Marcus Bell sat beside him, posture tight, jaw clenched. Whatever confidence had existed earlier was gone, replaced by calculation. Defense attorney Laura Chen stood immediately. "The defense recalls Mr. Adrian Cole." Judge Grant nodded. "Proceed." Cole returned to the stand. The calm he carried earlier had shifted into something heavier now. Honesty or resignation. Maybe both. Chen approached slowly. "Mr. Cole," she said, "earlier you stated you heard a gunshot after Detective Hale entered the office." "Yes." "Did you see Detective Hale leave afterward?" Cole nodded. "Yes." "How long after the sound?" "Maybe 2 minutes." "Describe what you saw." Cole inhaled deeply. "He came out quickly. Looked different." "Different how?" Cole hesitated, focused, like he was already thinking ahead. The words hung in the air. Bell stood abruptly. "Your Honor, the prosecution requests permission to address this witness." Judge Grant nodded once. "Proceed." Bell approached the stand carefully, every movement precise, controlled. "Mr. Cole," he began, voice steady despite the tension, "you understand the seriousness of your claims." "Yes." "And you did not include this information in any previous statement to police." "No." "You waited until cross-examination during trial." "Yes." Bell paused, letting doubt settle. "Isn't it true," he said, "that your memory has changed over time?" Cole shook his head. "No." "Isn't it possible you were misinterpreting what you saw?" "No." Bell's tone sharpened slightly. "You expect this jury to believe that a decorated detective committed murder, and no one noticed until now?" Cole met his gaze calmly. I expect them to believe what happened. The answer landed cleanly, without anger, without hesitation. Bell stepped closer. You said you were afraid. Yes. Afraid enough to remain silent while an innocent man sat accused? The question hit hard. Cole's eyes moved toward Daniel Hayes. Hayes remained still, watching, waiting. Yes, Cole said quietly. I was afraid. Bell paused, then stepped back slowly. No further questions, but the damage was done. Judge Grant turned toward Detective Hale. Detective, she said calmly, you will step forward. The room froze. Hale stood slowly, every movement controlled. He walked toward the front of the courtroom without hesitation. Judge Grant watched him carefully. You have heard the testimony presented. Yes, Your Honor. Would you like to respond? Hale's voice was calm, almost too calm. Yes, he turned toward the jury. I followed procedure, he said. I arrived at the office later that night to verify evidence. Chen rose immediately. Your Honor, the defense requests Detective Hale be sworn as a witness. Judge Grant considered only briefly. Granted. The oath was administered. Hale took the stand. The entire room leaned forward. Because this was no longer about the defendant. This was about the truth-shifting direction. Chen approached slowly. Detective Hale, when did you arrive at the victim's office that night? Hale answered without hesitation, after the crime had already occurred. Are you certain? Yes. Chen paused, then asked quietly, then how do you explain the fact that Mr. Cole heard a gunshot while you were inside? The question hung heavy. Hale didn't blink. Mr. Cole is mistaken. Simple, direct, but something in his tone felt rehearsed. Judge Grant watched closely, because sometimes truth wasn't revealed by what people said, but by how they said it. And for the first time since the trial began, the jury no longer knew who to believe. The courtroom felt heavier than it had at any point during the trial. Not louder, not chaotic, just focused. Every person inside knew they were witnessing the moment where everything would either collapse or finally make sense. Detective Raymond Hale sat on the witness stand. Perfect posture, controlled breathing, eyes steady. He looked like a man trained to withstand pressure. But Judge Eleanor Grant had learned long ago that control often revealed more than panic. Defense attorney Laura Chen stepped forward slowly. She didn't rush, because truth didn't need speed. It needed space. Detective Hale, she said calmly, you testified that you arrived after the crime had already occurred. Yes. And you were certain of that? Yes. Chen nodded once, then placed a small tablet on the evidence stand. Your Honor, with permission, the defense would like to present newly submitted surveillance footage obtained this morning. Bell stood immediately. Your Honor, Judge Grant raised a hand. Overruled. Continue. The screen came alive. Grainy security footage filled the room. A timestamp glowed in the corner. 9:19 p.m. A figure entered the building's side corridor. The camera angle shifted. Clearer now. Detective Hale, walking quickly, alone. The jury leaned forward as one. Chen spoke softly. This timestamp places Detective Hale entering the office area approximately 2 minutes before the estimated time of death. Bell's face drained slightly. Hale remained still. Too still. Chen continued. Detective, why did you not disclose this entry during your testimony? Hale's jaw tightened. I believed it irrelevant. The answer felt weak, even to him. Chen didn't react. She simply asked the next question. When you entered the office, was the victim alive? Silence filled the room. Hale hesitated, the first real hesitation. I cannot confirm. Chen nodded slowly. Mr. Cole heard a gunshot while you were inside. That is his interpretation. Chen tilted her head slightly. Is it also your interpretation? Hale said nothing. The silence spoke louder than words. Judge Grant leaned forward. Detective Hale, she said quietly, you are under oath. You will answer clearly. Hale exhaled slowly. For the first time, cracks appeared. I arrived to confront the victim, he said. Gasps echoed through the room. Chen remained still. Confront him about what? Hale's voice dropped. Evidence manipulation. The courtroom erupted into whispers before the gavel struck sharply. Order, Hale continued. He had altered records connected to previous investigations, he said. Cases involving dangerous individuals released because of technicalities. Chen nodded. And during this confrontation, he reached for something. What? I believed it was a weapon. And you fired? The words landed like thunder. Hale closed his eyes briefly. Yes. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Judge Grant's voice came carefully. You did not report this? No. Why? Hale's voice carried weight now. Because I knew how it would look. An officer killing a key witness in a sensitive investigation, it would destroy everything. Chen stepped closer. So you allowed Daniel Hayes to be charged instead. Hale's voice cracked slightly. I believed the system would eventually correct itself. The irony hung painfully in the air. Daniel Hayes finally moved. Just slightly. The first visible reaction since the trial began. Not anger, not relief, just exhaustion. Judge Grant sat back slowly. The truth had arrived, not loudly, not dramatically, but undeniably. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. The verdict came quickly. Daniel Hayes, not guilty. The courtroom exhaled as one. Hale sat motionless as officers approached him. No resistance, just quiet acceptance. Later, as the room emptied, Judge Grant remained seated for a moment longer. Watching the space where certainty had once lived, she had seen it happen countless times. The truth had always been there, hidden in small details, in pauses, in what people didn't say. And the hardest part was always the same. People believed what felt obvious, until they learned to watch closely. Because sometimes, the truth appears when nobody notices.